But let's talk about planning the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that because people are like, okay, I gotta do I batch create? Do I have the topics at hand first? Oh my God, how long does it take to research? Yeah, let's talk about planning the podcast episodes. We've done 100. I mean, we've done 100 episodes. A lot of planning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think just to go from what was difficult to what became a little bit easier, what I used to do was the day of recording, just take as much time as I can, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes up to 4 hours, trying to speed watch and speed listen all of the different things that are out there that I thought were relevant. And I realized that you really don't get the best information that way because you're almost trying to meet a deadline as opposed to thinking, okay, what's relevant, what's trending, what's important, and what do people need to know or learn about based on who our specific audience is. So what I'm doing now is I'm paying attention to what's happening throughout the weeks, and I will save things or highlight them. You know, if they're on Instagram, I'll just save them. Or DM them to myself. Right. So those are some of the ways that I will almost remind myself and have like a rolling catalog of what I think can be some potential topics for the week. The same thing on YouTube. Believe it or not, YouTube is one of those spaces for me where I spend most of my time on. So even when I look at my, phone's use time or whatever, I typically spend way more time on YouTube than I do on any other social media platform. So that's been the easier way for me to prepare for the show or for the episode. It's to look at some of those concepts and try and, find a balance in there. For a while, it was, oh, here's what I'm passionate about. And that sometimes is important too. You want to put some things in there that you're like, oh, this person set a bar and I think it's going to be phenomenal to be talked about. It almost creates like a debate, or let's see how we can run it. But for sure, I think the best way to plan or prepare is to do it throughout the week instead of taking one full day to just cram everything. And you have to then record later that day or that evening, depending on when your recording schedule is. But for sure, that's just been some of my ways of bringing some things together.
Mine's would be before, just like how Moose said, researching the day of is the worst thing you can do. Worst thing, right? Yeah. I get it. Sometimes life hits you. That's what you got. But it becomes very difficult and makes your episode feel super rushed if you do it that way. I think finding proper timing, if you have to do research. Some podcasts is just straight conversation. Let's see how this goes and flows. Shout out to S2S Podcast. They do that all the time. They get together and they're like, go through your phone. What conversation did you have today? Oh, we'll go through that. Let's talk about that and let's make that into a lesson, right? Of course, it depends on like your podcast. For us, we talk about, different topics, different brands, different influencers. So we're going to have to find, probably for me, time throughout the week to research, time throughout the week to grab the piece of content and kind of clip it up exactly the way we want it, right? Also respecting the originator as far as not putting too much of their content on our own platform, but getting the meat and potatoes of it, because our whole concept is showing you the blueprint and then showing you how it applies to your own brand and business, right? And so that's going to take a few days. So one of the things as far as planning it out is, Monday through, because we record on Saturdays, Fridays or Saturdays, latest Sunday mornings. Just the latest. Mm-hmm. That's it, right? But so probably Monday through Thursday, I'm going through YouTube. That's my main thing because I consume content through video, right? I do listen to podcasts, which will make me go to the video if I hear something dope, right? So I'm going through YouTube through those days. Friday, I'm probably starting to chop them up, right? I'm starting to use Notion a little bit more as far as for my YouTube consumption and note taking, right? So I'll put the video, I'll put the timestamps, everything. So it's just like a running log of the things that I do because it could be used. I may not be use it that week, but it could be something as cool that I go back to that I realize that I was watching so much that there was something that was so dope and I wanted to go back to it and I couldn't remember when, where, when did I watch it. So now making sure I have a running log of the topics of the videos that I've watched, what we've talked about, that kind of whole nine. So that has really helped with the planning. And then, of course, understanding the flow that we're going to have. You know, are we going to get into like a personal conversation? These past, I would say, I don't know, starting at episode 80 or something, it was like things that inspired me. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the Jay-Z information, the understanding situation. Let's talk about this thing. Let's talk, starting it off on a more personal side, because I realize that as we get more and more in these later episodes, people want to know more about us.
Right.
Right. And so I'll be the guinea pig of that. Hey, this is what I like. Let's talk about it. Let's do this. Why? Because I am in a stage of, and I'll say wherever I am in my mind and things like that, to kind of reel Moose's side of it as well. And you get to hear a little bit more. So planning that out. Mm-hmm. When is it cool? Not necessarily cool, but when do we both feel comfortable giving a little bit more than just what we normally do? That stuff got to get planned out. You know, it's not just about, you know, that particular episode of that week. It is more about what are we doing for when we started the 10th episode, the 22nd episode, you know, everything from what are we showing? When are we transitioning to a new format? When are we upgrading our equipment? You know, that's all part of the planning process when it comes to the podcast episodes, because it all affects the vibe of each episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's important. I mean, you know, and it's funny because I'm thinking that on the back end of 100 episodes, there's a lot of different seasons that each of us have gone through, right? Mm-hmm. We've gone through good seasons and bad seasons and transition seasons and seasons of what's next. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happens through that. Mm-hmm. And I think when you're doing a podcast with someone else, you're not always going to be on the same page as far as, oh, I feel super expressive in this season, so I'm going to tell my whole life to everyone, you know. Well, maybe the other person doesn't feel that way. And I think that's okay. It's actually sometimes provides the balance that people need to hear, because it may connect with those who are more open and expressive and those who like to keep certain things private. Mm-hmm. You know, I think in the beginning I was super open and I was super out there, at least to my standards. Mm-hmm. And I just felt that was unnecessary. And so I'm like, okay, now reel it back in here. Let's make sense of this a little bit. And
right.
Let's get some direction. Just be telling people what you ate for breakfast for no good reason. It's like you gotta have some method to it. So, you know, I think that's okay.